Yeah, that's tomorrow. Let's get there. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the December 18, 2018 meeting of the Whitehall City Council. For the purpose of considering such matters that may come before it, I'm going to ask everyone to please rise for a moment of silence and remain standing for the pledge. Thank you. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Frymark, would you call the roll for one final time this year?
Cantor. Heck.
Here.
Morrison.
Here.
Bailey.
Here.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Elmore.
Here.
Coniston.
Here.
President Green.
Present.
Mr. President, I'd like to move to excuse the absent member. Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Mr. Rodriguez to excuse the absent member. Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck.
Yes.
Morrison.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
All right, next on our agenda, we have our approval of minutes for December 4, 2018 agenda and regular meeting.
Mr. President, I'd like to make the motion to approve the December 4th minutes.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Coniston and a second by Ms. Elmore for approval of the December 4, 2018 agenda and regular meeting minutes. Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck.
Yes.
Morrison.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
All right, the minutes have been approved as read. The minutes have been approved. I'm used to saying that in another meeting. So. All right. Well, we have several special presentations this evening, and I'm going to let Ms. Elmore introduce the first one.
Okay. I've had the privilege of having a conversation with Tatiana with the Ethiopian Taekwondo Social Services, and brought to just my awareness that there are so many services that are offered here in Whitehall that meet the needs of our multicultural community. And I wanted to give her the opportunity to discuss or talk about some of those services that they provide in Whitehall, and you're up. So thank you. And I want to thank Amy Harkar also for being here. Thank you, Amy.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Councilmember Lori Elmore, for inviting us to this meeting and giving us the opportunity to introduce ETSS. Again, my name is Tatiana Bojanovsky, and with me I do have Amy Harper, who will also talk about some of our programs provided at ETSS. As she helps me, or she passes the annual reports from 2017, and you can read more about ETSS at your own convenience. I would like to tell you a little bit about me and my background. I was born and raised in Macedonia, a little Balkan country that used to be part of Yugoslavia. My family and I immigrated from Yugoslavia right before the war started there. This year we celebrated our 30th anniversary since we came to the United States. I was in high school when we came. My brother was in middle school, and none of us, including my parents, spoke any English. In fact, as soon as my brother and I learned a word or two in English, my parents and grandparents relied heavily on us to translate and take care of the adult stuff, like doctor appointments, reading mail, writing bills, filling out documents. Now, I was a teenager, 16 years old, and I wasn't having fun just like the other kids my age. I felt like I grew up very quickly, and I skipped a huge part of my childhood of being a teenager and doing all those crazy things teenagers do at this age. From an A student back home, a class president, and involved in a bunch of extracurricular activities, choir, scouts, mentoring young kids, competing in poetry, and so on. I came from school many times telling my parents that I had not spoken one word that day. I was afraid to look at anyone because I feared that they would talk to me, and I had no idea what to say back, or what they would say to me in that matter. The reason why I'm telling you this is because I know what the new American families are going through when they come here now. The challenges are even greater at this time. Life in general is quite more expensive now these days. One example is 30 years ago when my family and I came, technology was not so implemented in everyday life. So we didn't have to worry about computers, emails, e-documents, applying online, looking for a job online, and so on. And like I said, this is just one example. There's much more to worry about now, whether you are an adult, young individual, an elderly, especially if you come from someplace else and you have to learn everything from the very beginning. Luckily, there are organizations like ETSS to help these individuals. ETSS, short for Tawahedo Social Services, and Tawahedo meaning all in one or unity, was founded by Dr. Seleshi. Dr. Seleshi and his family immigrated from Ethiopia. What started out as a small organization helping just a handful of people from Ethiopia, ETSS is now an organization that helps immigrants and refugees from all countries establish roots and gain self-sufficiency here in Central Ohio. It is an organization spreading 12 sites located throughout the city, offering young youth programs such as after-school tutoring, K-12, summer camps, K-8, youth employment and comprehensive case management employment program for out-of-school youth up to age 24, adult programs, family care programs, community involvement, and more. I will let Amy speak more about the family care programs, but before that, I would like to take a moment to talk about the new adult services office here on the east side, zip code 43213. Whereas our youth program has been in full force here on the east side for a good 10 years now, we didn't have much to offer to the adults. The nearest office for the east side individuals was the downtown office. Still not so terribly far, but for some individuals may be a little inconvenienced. Our new office now located at 588 McNaughton Road, offers ESOL classes and American citizenship classes every day, Monday through Friday. We are even open 2 evenings of the week for the individuals that work during the day. We also have workforce development, case management, and community health navigation professionals, interpreters that will work with clients by appointment. And not to just tell you what we offer, but to me what is more important is to talk a little bit about the successes of our clients. I will concentrate on the adults, but you can certainly learn more about our entire clientele on our website of ETSS, as well as all the social media. We are everywhere. Just a recent story that really stuck with me is about an individual who came from South America. He was an engineer back home, and here, well, his first job was at a warehouse. This is because he didn't know where to start looking for a better opportunity or a better job. Through us, he was employed at AEP. Within a year, was promoted twice, and is now one of the top engineers on staff. Another example, just last Wednesday, I had a young lady from Morocco, who came to enroll in my English class. She moved to Columbus area after ending a bad marriage in another state. She came eager to start classes because she said she wants to be able to work. When I asked her when she wants to start working, she said as soon as possible, but she doesn't think that it can be done because she doesn't know where to start looking, and she thinks she doesn't speak enough English. Her English is not so terrible, she just didn't know where to really begin looking. So by last Friday, we arranged an interview, and she now has an orientation scheduled, so she has a job. There are many success stories, whether they're job-related or becoming American citizens, or simply just learning to read, write, and speak, even with no prior education from home. I'm not going to brag about many individuals from 74 countries that I have so far worked with, though I am pretty proud of that number. But I do want to take a minute to also talk about our future plans and our hopes of collaborating between our organization and the city. First and foremost, the New Americans are here, and they're here to stay. They contribute towards our economy. They are a part of the fabric of the city. We all together are who make our cities and our country beautiful. New Americans are part of us. On any given day, whether you're driving or walking just down these streets right here in the area, you see businesses and owners that are from different nationalities. Whether it's Lalibela or to come from Ethiopia, whether it's Jumbo's or Sunrise Market from Macedonia, King Gyros from Greece, Poblanos or El Mariachi from Mexico, and dozens more, we make up the fabric. We can visit any school or any classroom here in Whitehall, and we can see students from dozens of different nationalities. We all know all this. We are all aware of it. Yet there's still much more to do. For instance, and this is just one example that Ms. Elmore and I were talking about, our elderlies. They come from their countries feeling that it is important for them to be here. In many instances, they're helping with the grandchildren. But then the grandchildren grow up, and they don't need to be babysat anymore. These elderlies then are left at home staring at the TV that speaks a different language to them, and they can't understand. They can go outside, but they're afraid to talk to their neighbors because they don't speak the language. They feel lonely. This is a very personal one for me because my grandmother, who lived on Elaine Road, just down the street from here, was faced with the same thing. For hours and hours and hours, I would see my grandmother sit on her couch and she would knit and crochet. So did many other older ladies from our church and our community. They made blankets and hats and scarves and sweaters for everyone in their family until there was no one else that they would knit for. If I only thought of the idea, if it only dawned on me to get all of them together, so then they can make hats and scarves for the needy in the city, blankets for the nursing homes or the nurseries. How important would my grandmother have felt at that time? So this is just one example that we can do, but there is so much more that we can do to help our entire community and include everyone, no matter the age, the language, or the nationality. We are introducing ETSS to kind of let you know, hey, we are here. These are our services available. This is what we offer, and let's work together. Now that we have an office here on the east side, let's get involved and put the true meaning in that Tabahedo word in action. And speaking of services available, I will now turn the mic over to Miss Amy, who is a familiar face to many of you probably, so she can tell you a little bit more about some of the services that we do offer to more adults. Thank you for your time.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see so many of you that I know. Most of you do know me, but my name is Amy Harkar. I am a Whitehall resident. I've been here for nearly 13 years in the city, and I've worked with Ethiopian Tawahedo Social Services for the last 4 years. I'm the family care manager at ETSS, so I work with immigrants and refugees who are survivors of domestic violence, human trafficking, and sexual assaults. And one of the questions that I get so often is, that happens here? Yes, it does. Unfortunately, domestic violence and human trafficking, they know no boundaries. They don't care what country you're from, what color your skin is, what language you speak, or what religion you are. It really can affect everyone. The United Nations actually just came out with a report just less than a month ago that said the most dangerous place for a woman is actually in her home. So this is one thing that I'm striving really hard to work on. And while the vast majority of our clients, we've served 80 survivors in the last year, plus their children. The vast majority of them are women, but we do also have some male domestic violence survivors as well. For those clients, they're men born in other countries. They come here, and their American-born spouses use their immigration status, even though they're legal and they're documented. the color of their skin, perhaps their religion, against them as a mechanism of control and violence often. So we provide services to anyone who needs it, who qualifies for our programs. We don't ask a great deal of questions regarding their immigration status, other than that we want to help them. For many of our clients, their abusers have taken their documents away or destroyed them. And without those documents, things that we think that come so easy for American-born people are extremely difficult. Even replacing a Social Security card for one of my clients, she tried to get it replaced. She was an American citizen, but they had her marked still as a permanent resident, and it had expired according to their documents. She didn't have the certificate of citizenship, so she wasn't able to replace that Social Security card. So we were able to work with her, find out what her immigration status was, get the documents that were needed, helped her pay the large fees that came along with that, so that she was actually, we were just able to attend her swearing-in ceremony last week, which was a wonderful joy for all of us to be able to see her receive those documents so that she'll be able to move on with her life. But without those things, people can't work. They can't get jobs, they can't get benefits, so oftentimes they can't get away from the people that are controlling them. So we really want to strive to make sure that they can have access to their documents, that they know what their rights are. If for our clients, the majority of the information that they get is actually coming from the person who is abusing them. So as you can imagine, they're not 100% truthful in telling them what their rights are in the United States. So we do a lot of education so that people are aware of what their rights are here. And as I said, we help with the children as well. We can help get the kids to medical appointments, help them if they've had documents that have been destroyed. Maybe they were never filed for properly, so we can help figure that out as well. And then we also help with safety planning and emergency services. In the last year, we've served clients, we've served 80 clients from over 20 countries. So our staff right now is myself and 2 other full-time advocates, but our advocates are from the countries that the majority of our clients are from. They speak Amharic, Somali, Mai, and Swahili, and for other languages, we're able to get interpreters in for them to make sure that they can access the services that they need. So I just wanted to share that information with you all so that you're aware of what we have. I know we've met with the city attorney before and have spoken about some concerns and safety issues for residents here in Whitehall, but we are always happy to help when you need us. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the information. All right, so now we have another special presentation from Hamilton Crossing, and it'll be phase 2. If Joe would like to introduce those involved with it.
I'm sorry, sir, I was talking
You know, I used to do that in school a lot.
Yes.
And I was in the same boat that you're in right now. I had no idea what was going on, and by the time I figured out, the test was done and I failed. All right, so I'm gonna
This isn't a test,
Poor Joe.
just teasing.
Merry Christmas to you too.
I was just saying, go ahead, you can introduce
Yes,
those
so
involved.
yes, I have Homeport here again, so we had to make some amendments to our presentation last time, so we wanted to reacquaint you with the project, give you the new elements, and give the opportunity to ask any questions prior to the planning commission meeting. So with that, I'll introduce Justin again.
I'm assuming they have a slide, so always give me one. Not there.
Perfect. Our architect is also on the list, if he's coming from another meeting downtown. So I can go ahead and get started. Let's give you a little bit of introduction. Good evening, council. Thanks for having us. My name is Justin Metzler, and I came to you a month or so ago in regards to a project that we were proposing as part of our existing Hamilton Crossing project. Senior housing that was completed at the end of last year. And what we had proposed in the past, or here just recently, was we were wanting to do a market rates project, more of a workforce type housing project behind our existing Hamilton Crossing project that was going to consist of 40 units, a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom apartment units. Since we last did the presentation, we had another opportunity that's available for the site that is across the street. It's currently vacant, owned by Plaza Properties on Etna Road, so it's immediately across from the Hamilton Crossing project. So now working with Plaza to acquire this property, we felt that it would be a good direction to look at, or take another look at our strategy and how we were going to do this market rate workforce housing, and then now with this senior project that we're proposing as well. So what we are now proposing is, in the packet you'll see, is the existing Hamilton Crossing project directly behind that. Instead of doing the 40 units of market rate workforce housing, we are now looking at doing 32 units of senior housing that would be submitted as part of our tax credit application here in February for seniors to make more of a campus type project with our current senior housing project. And then we're proposing to develop a workforce project across the street on the Plaza property that would consist of 102 workforce market rate units. So we felt this was a good switch. Not only did it allow us to now do more of an economies of scale with our current management, and we felt that now we could create this more of a senior campus project. We would now have a workforce project in conjunction with a tax credit project. So the market rate workforce consists of 102 units, a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units. It would be a 4-story building. Of course, we're working on the site. And the senior project would still be the two-story project that you saw before, but now instead of having 3 buildings, it's combined into 1 building. It would now be an elevator building to support the seniors that are living there. It's also part of an over requirement as well. We would have some amenity space within that project as well, but we would really be building off of the existing amenities in the current project. So that project that's there now has quite a large community space, so we'll be utilizing that. But this one would have like a small office, a small exercise room, and then also like a consultation type room that would allow some of our third-party service providers to be able to come and do some appointments with some of the existing residents. Project across the street would be similar to what we were on in terms of the amenities that were before, but also keeping those minimal so that we could create a cost-efficient, effective project for workforce. So as you can see here, this is the new plan. So 2 buildings across the street. Or, sorry, it's actually, it looks like it's 2 buildings, but we've got a connector there that would house the elevator that would provide residents access to both buildings on all 4 levels. The other thing that you'll see with the Etna Road piece is trying to create and continue on that rain garden approach from a little bit further on to the east. So that's what you get with the winding sidewalk there and what the cursor is pointing towards. In terms of materials, so the property that's the senior housing piece, it's now with the existing Hampton Crossing project. We are using a lot of the same materials that you had seen from the last project. So the only thing really, again, that's changed is just kind of that design or the building shape per se. So instead of 3, again, it's 1. And then with the project across the street on Etna, that would be a little bit more modern feel, again, 4 stories, and really activating that sidewalk a little bit more for that. So the other thing that we're looking at in conjunction with these 2 projects is looking at how we can address the rain garden, or not the rain garden, I'm sorry, the sand basin that's currently existing at the corner of Etna and Hamilton Road. We know it's not functioning as like it should be. Of course, it's not as sightly as we would like for it to be and what we originally anticipated, how it would look. So in working with these 2 projects, we're also exploring how we can turn that into more of a rain garden type look, and whether it's through screening or becoming more of a public type feature. It's something that we're definitely exploring. But we had talked with the MH&T about how we could do that. So just further negotiating with them on all those details and how that could be done.
It clearly holds water,
It does.
more than what longer than it's supposed to,
Yeah,
so.
that's right. And we've made them aware of it as well, that there's something going on. And it could be resulting from some sediment that got into it during the construction of it, impeding kind of the ability for it to flow out there like it should be. So that is something that we would sure look at. Our architect, Carrick, is here.
So the second, or phase 3, that,
Yes.
what type of customer are you looking for that phase?
So it would be the same type of customer we were looking at before. So it would be more of the workforce housing customer. For those, probably making between 80 and like 120% AMI. Very similar to what we were doing before. It's just swapping sides, basically.
Okay.
So, and then again, with the senior piece behind it, because it's the one building, we've tried to position it on the site to, again, to be a buffer between the single family to the south there. As you can see to the east of the phase 2 piece, we've left that towards green space, so that's a little bit closer to those single family homes, whereas where the building's placed now, we've got that buffer, that green space buffer between that building and the single family homes there to the south.
And so, just out of curiosity, why have you left the green space down on the east? Yes, right there.
Yeah, so for that reason. So originally, if you remember the previous design, we had detached garages there.
Yes.
So we had that as kind of the buffer because we had buildings to the north of that. But now we don't, so we figured to leave that and still do the fencing as we had talked about
Okay.
last time to create that barrier. So we have now a little bit more green space available and still the buffer, with the fencing and the trees there to the south.
What's the difference in the height of this 4-story versus phase 1?
So the 4-story is roughly, what, 40, 45
Yeah.
feet high, and then, we've got the 2-story, which would be the same height as what it was proposed originally.
Is this an atrium between the 2 buildings? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's more of a connecting space that would house the elevator and, maybe some
Would be
type
like-
space.
2 banks of elevators? I mean, one for the 51 units over here, one
Just,
for...
just one bank of elevators that would serve both sides.
Gotcha.
If I could, I think the question was phase 1 of Hamilton Crossing, the approximate height with the pitch pitched roof is approximately?
Oh, I'm sorry. Phase one, so that's a 3-story building, so it's probably roughly 35, 36 feet
With,
high.
with the pitched roof?
With the pitch,
So you're talking about 6 feet difference in the two buildings?
Right, because this is gonna have a flat roof, so
it's
that's gonna
probably
burn.
about, what, 10-foot difference. So you've taken the stories, height of the stories.
The E height of Hamilton Crossing would likely be around 33 feet, which would put the midpoint of the roof around 38, 39. And the peak of the roof would certainly be in the mid-40s. So, I mean, if you looked at them straight as a sectional cut, the peak of the Hamilton Crossing 3-story would likely be about the same height as the, assuming they were on the same ground plane.
So that's what you're, I think
Right.
that's the point you're getting at,
Right.
that with the pitch of the roof on phase one, it's roughly, the top of the height of it is roughly the same height as the 4-story because it's a flat roof.
Right, I was just wondering the aesthetics of
Yeah, they're gonna,
across from one another, and what that was gonna do in the height, yeah.
so it sounds like it's about the same.
Garrett, do you wanna?
I can connect in and we can look at.
I see here on the east and west ends of phase 3, it appears that it looks very much like the center. And so in that you can see through it. So that tells me there's no hallway in there. Is that a stairwell, or am I just putting something there that's not there?
Well, I think we're still working out some of the details with Oregon specifically.
Because it appears to be 1 story less than the actual building, than the rest of the building. It doesn't appear to be 4 stories.
The connector piece between
No,
the two?
on each end.
You see, it looks like there's
Oh,
a,
yes. Yeah, on each end of the building, we've stepped the building down, so it does approach the street with more of a 3-story style building.
Okay.
And then that space is taken up as a kind of a rooftop terrace amenity space for the residents.
But there are still units in those 2 3-story.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, actually, the center pieces, they, on the first floor, they house the amenity spaces like the community room and the fitness room, and then the primary lobby space.
I noticed there's, on phase 3, there is parking along the street on either end of this. I thought we was trying to stay away from parking toward the front and along the streets.
Parking in the front, where that's visible from Etna Road.
Yes.
Yes, I see what you're saying.
So, I don't have a copy of them, but I got that one. Thank you. Thank you. Our overlay for in our commercial district actually calls for the parking to be to the side or the rear, not in front of the building. So this would still meet those standards.
I know on phase 1, we really emphasize no parking to the front on there because of the aesthetics of the sidewalk and the walking path and all that.
but based on this lot's not that deep though, doesn't, can't afford that. They're
Yeah.
gonna have to, they've gotta put them somewhere, and I mean, this is
Right, so
palatable.
I think that's, and actually Carrick is doing his patented flyby.
We got to the parking, yeah, there it is.
So one of the things that we worked with Homeport on were those bio basins. And so again, we used one of those bio basins to do some of the screening of the parking lot. And then you can actually see behind the sidewalk, they are proposing an additional amount of landscaping there, kind of in the bottom left-hand corner, to do more screening of the parking lot. To, I think, Councilman Rodriguez's point, in a perfect world, we would have been able to put all of the parking all behind the building. Unfortunately, to get the massing and the density that make the project work, that wasn't gonna work. The other component to that is, I think as all of you know, we are actively working on reacquiring and cleaning up the gas station property. And so what we also envision, you can see it just goes on green for heads. It's just like it is now. Greenfield, we've turned it into Greenfield. That's the best development we've had yet. The idea there is that some of this parking there along the western edge would also potentially be able to be overflow parking for a commercial use that we're looking at on the corner as well. Joe and I have been in conversations with a medical provider about a single tenant medical provider there on the corner. If we can get a gas station lot reacquired and cleaned up, we're working with the Franklin County CIC to do just that. We believe they'll have acquisition of the property in the next 4 to 6 months and have the property cleaned up by the end of next year.
And who would be getting the overflow parking?
So the idea is if you put a medical office, a small medical office, I'm not in any way, shape, or form trying to pretend it's an urgent care or, but if you put a sole practitioner medical office on the corner, you could potentially then share some of the parking that's on this site, because the idea being during the day when your medical need or your medical office would need parking, the folks that have cars here would be at work, and then at night when they come home or weekends, then that's obviously applicable for them. So there's a reason that this western part of the parking lot was designed in such a way to be able to accommodate that potential future use.
Okay, you stated that they're going to make improvements on the existing storm basin off of phase 1. What's the storm basins for phase 3?
So
how are we handling this? How are we handling that?
If I could, because I'll just jump in, because it's the way that they will be able to handle all of the stormwater requirements for that site in the footprint that you see, both with not only rooftop but also with these bio basins that are down along Etna. The ones that are along Etna in this stretch will look similar to the ones that are down in the park, but the ones down the park have that open trough that then diverts stormwater from the street. The stormwater for these will come off of the site.
And those actually look larger than the ones down at the park?
I don't.
Well, just by the.
We would have to have those sized, of course, appropriately, with our civil engineer, but the sizing of those would be worked out.
And you're thinking, you're showing 3 here, so you're thinking that would be sufficient to handle that large of a building?
We don't know yet in terms of the quantity of those and the size, but yeah, that is something that we will coordinate with our civil engineer.
But phase 1 is obviously much larger. And it's not sufficient or operating properly anyway.
Yeah, in terms of the details of phase 1 and whether it was sized appropriately or not, I'm not as privy to how it was installed and the technicality of that, but again, that is something that, we are going to be looking at with EMH&T to figure out, how to.
And that's whether the sand filter functions properly or not is a different question than whether it was sized appropriately. I don't think there's any question that it
I agree with that.
was sized appropriately.
Yeah, I'm not questioning the size of this. I'm questioning with these 2 large buildings, they're showing 3 basins here. Is that sufficient for that much?
Well, what I can tell you is that there would not, I don't know what happened there, we just.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. That's too bad, because I really enjoyed the fly-through. The idea being that if, once they get into final civil, if any additional stormwater retention is necessary, there will not be any additional basin or we certainly don't allow dry basins now, we don't allow sound filters now. There's not the space to do a wet basin, so it'll either be by increasing the size or the number of these biobasins, or will be done through a combination of holding water on the roof or through underground retention.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we don't intend to build any sand basins or retention
Right.
basins, detention, whatever they may be on site.
And so, across the street, we have an ornamental fence running along the property, which doesn't show there. Am I mistaken, isn't there a fence on the other side?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And so, it doesn't show it on the opposite side of this one and it's not showing it on phase 3. Does that mean that there isn't one there? Or would that not fit? I just was kind of looking at continuity as you're driving down the road. You know, you have the black, I believe it's black fencing on the,
Yes.
yeah, on the one side of the street, and then on the other side, you're not going to have anything. And I don't think the picture doesn't show it, but I'm almost sure that it's there.
It
It
is.
is.
I was just wondering if any thought had been given to at least partially incorporating some of that look for the other side.
We had looked at that.
Especially where the drain basins are.
So,
I'm just throwing something out there.
yeah, we looked at that, we can look at it again. There is not as much setback
I realize that.
on that, I mean, that's
I
just,
realize
there's, you know, there is a lot of, there are a lot of, there's the sidewalk, there's the lights. This is, again, this is, the setback of the building is not as large as it is on the other
And
side.
I understand it's very narrow, it's a very long, narrow.
Stop right there. See Jim right there on that entrance
I
right
do
there?
see
You're still
some.
getting some of that effect. I mean,
Yeah.
so they're still
Yeah,
kind of
there's
trying to
some
do that.
black wrought iron.
But you are looking at two different architectural styles, so it doesn't necessarily have,
Yeah,
you don't
I
necessarily
understand.
mock the other,
Yeah.
you know, just, may not. Well,
We go to
yeah, this
near
is
the
beautiful. This
overhang.
elevation.
Looks like brand new yard.
Yeah, it does.
There you go.
Looks great.
I, for one, like your changes.
I, for one, like the.
You get the leaves out of the road.
That's a city
Why
service.
why did your guy mow the grass into the road?
That's awesome.
That's
Also
against-
the water.
I would like to see, actually, I would like to see if they do develop this.
Brad, I'll
that there's
talk to
a
Walt about
development.
that.
Oh, look for the elevator.
I think it would be
Yeah, but
perfect.
that elevator.
Well, no, but I'm saying,
Yeah, that doesn't look too bad at all.
That's
Yeah, that
gorgeous.
center section's gonna have elevator in it.
Beautiful.
Right,
Yes,
that would
have
be
an
more
architect.
in the
Be one or
elevator.
two?
Mhm.
Just one?
One, yeah, one
Start both-
elevator that
both
will
directions.
both, yeah, that's right.
That's great.
So are you gonna have like bridge walkways or is it gonna be I mean, how's that?
Well, that piece that's in there right now, that you see the connector piece, so that would be where, you know, you would connect from wing to wing, it's just through there, and however we would incorporate that elevator as a part of that, then that's how you would access, you know, those the 3 floors above, you know, Main Street.
On the fourth floor, I know that on one of the render it shows, oh, there you go. Will you go to the right or the east or the west, Karen? Are those real balconies, or those fake balconies, or those not balconies? What's there on the, above the brick?
You're talking about here?
Yeah.
Those brick projections are too narrow to actually be balconies, so they're.
They're kind of like,
They're kind of false balconies or Juliet balconies.
There's the modern Juliet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, for the projects that we do, you know, we typically like to steer away from the balcony, you know, the
Actual
balconies,
balconies.
actual balconies, but at least to have some sort of effect mimicked here to
Yeah.
match the rest of the style is why it's being shown.
I say I'm impressed on the first floor that there's actual entrances from the first
Going right out.
floor,
That's beautiful.
coming right out, on, you know, onto the street, and I think this gives a good variety of different options that people, you know, would want. You've got, you know, openings out to the street, then you have, you know, indoor openings, you know, I love it, I think it's beautiful. Mhm.
Yep.
Thank you, that's the nicest reception I've had all night.
And these are all gonna be 1 and 2 bedroom?
1 and 2 bedrooms, that's correct.
One bath?
Yes, that's correct. So this project that you're seeing here would be 1 and 2 bedrooms. The one behind the existing Hamilton Crossing would also be 1 and 2 bedroom apartments as well.
Yeah,
2 baths?
I think the
Probably
2-bedroom have 2
one
baths.
bath.
1 bedroom, 1 bath, and 2 bedroom, 2 bath, right?
Or we could do like a 1.5 bath or something. We still have to explore that.
Right here, it says 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 2 bedroom, 2 baths is what it's saying on the legend here.
We still have some detail work to go.
But it does have on their thing, just how many units, or how many bedrooms, and how many 2-bedrooms. So it was 70 1-bedroom and 32 2-bedroom. So
Do we
again,
know the square footage yet on those, by any chance?
They're generally 550 square feet for the 1-bedrooms. The 2-bedrooms, because they tend to get placed in various locations, they range in square footage of about 750 to 950.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's likely that the 750 square foot 2-bedrooms would be a 1-bedroom, I'm sorry, a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, or 1.5 bath,
Mhm.
and then the 950 square foot.
Probably be
2-bedrooms
2 then.
would probably end up with 2
Yeah.
baths, yeah.
Okay.
That's probably information that the planning commission might like to have when you meet with them.
Is there existing fencing at the rear of phase 3? And if not, is there
Yes,
fencing?
there is.
Yeah,
It's
that's
chain,
what,
it's chain link between the apartments and that land.
Yeah, I think there's a picture in your package that shows, that may not be it.
It's an existing picture of the phase 3 site. It's enlarged enough to get the.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see. But, yeah, I do believe there's a 6-foot
6, yeah.
chain link fence that's there now.
Is there any plans of doing any fencing on this project to the rear?
I would think that, well, we have to do this survey, but I mean, if the existing chain link fence would be adequate, so but we have to explore that and see the condition of it, and whose side it's on.
Yeah, who it belongs to.
Right, yeah, so that's.
It may be
something to
the
survey.
apartments. Which may also be plaza.
What's your anticipated build out? I mean, when would you start the different phases?
So we talked initially, where we have like a construction start time of maybe spring, summer of next year. For this piece, trying to position it so that it would come online before the tax credit piece. So the tax credit piece, if awarded, that wouldn't start until, since 2018, so probably 2020 timeframe is when that would start, probably in the spring as well.
I'm sorry, we haven't met. I'm Leah Evans, I'm Vice President of Real Estate for Homeport. Thank you, Justin. I'm gonna jump in on the timing aspect because we're negotiating right now with the property owner on the acquisition of that site. And so we're working on a timeframe that will put us back into September of 19 before we would make that acquisition so that we can finalize all of our financing pieces. So we're really looking at a 2020 project for both of these. So we've been looking at more of a spring 2020 on the workforce. And again, as Justin referenced, we would be applying for tax credits in February of 19, and then we wouldn't close on that, start on that till 2020. So both of these would be looking for a 2020 start date. Our best opportunity to manage costs is to try to do them both together. So though we're two separate projects, two separate financing paths, we're trying to coordinate it so we can do them both at the same time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our architect needs time to put some drawings.
I would like to start it.
Karen, do you know one? Apparently. But yeah, so that would help to get some economies of scale if we could do the construction of both at the same time. Absolutely. Other questions?
Very nice.
No, this looks great.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
again.
This is for our development department. If you are successful in redeveloping that lot at the corner of Hamilton and Etna, I would like to see the same look carry forward, not for the structure, but for the sidewalk, rain garden type of thing, to let it carry on out to the end of the street, and it would go, everything would be nice all the way down. For that side of the street, it would be all the same.
Well, their character.
No, I'm not talking about their property.
Uh-huh.
I'm talking about gas station slash convent food store PID 09000545600 to be specific.
No, yes, I understand what you're saying. I'm saying in practicality, there's not a whole lot of, I think the sidewalk, when they redo the sidewalk, there's going to be 100, maybe 50 feet, maybe 100 feet before we get to the corner, so that will absolutely, the sidewalk will absolutely be taken care of when we get to that site redevelopment. I'm not sure that there'll be enough space or the need for a rain, or for the bio basin, similar to what they're doing, but I certainly.
No, like we have further down the street.
Okay.
In the park, in front of in the park area.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Just a thought.
Okay.
Or we can let all that crap run into the storm sewer and let them take care of it down at.
That's what their picture shows. I mean,
No, I mean, I don't mean.
It was very windy when you drew that.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, now is our first opportunity for poll public. If anyone would like to come forward, you will have up to 3 minutes. All right, we're going to move right on then to standing committee reports, and we'll begin with Administration and Financial Management, Chairperson Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Administration and Financial Management did meet last week. Our minutes are on file, and I don't think we're meeting next week, but we will meet again next year, I'm sure.
All right, thank you. Community and Elder Advocacy, Chairperson Elmore.
Thank you, Mr. President. Community and Elder Advocacy met. Minutes should be on file. There's no meeting next week. Have a happy holiday, and we will continue the 2nd. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Community Standards and Enforcement, Chairperson Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Community Standards and Enforcement also met last weekend. Our minutes are on file. We'll meet again somewhere down the road.
All right, thank you. Economic Development, Chairperson Morrison.
Pass this way again.
Thank you, Mr. President. Economic Development also met last Tuesday, and we will meet again
In September.
sometime in January next year, but we will also be out here on the 2nd, out front for our regular meeting.
All right, thank you, sir. Infrastructure Maintenance and Services, Chairperson Peck.
Thank you, Mr. President. Infrastructure Maintenance and Services met last Tuesday. Our minutes are on file. We have no pending drafts or legislation. We will meet as a committee January 8th.
All right, thank you. Public Safety, Chairperson Coniston.
Thank you, President Graham. Public Safety met last week. Our minutes are on file, and we'll meet again in a few weeks sometime in the back after 6:30.
All right, then that leaves Parks and Recreation. That's Chairperson Canner. He's a little under the weather this evening. However, that committee did meet last week. Their minutes are on file, and they shall also meet sometime after the first of the year in 2019. Hopefully in January. All right, so those are all our standing committee reports. We'll move on with to our officials reports, and we'll begin with our mayor, Ms. Kim Magner.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming out here tonight. And I would just like to say that I believe that it was a beautiful breakfast with Santa, thanks to you and your group, Karen, on Saturday. I think people were coming in up until the last moment, and it was really a great crowd. So thank you and WCCA for everything that you all do to help our citizens. I would like favorable consideration of ordinances number 105, 109, 120, 122, 123, resolution 49, as well as ordinances 125, 126, 127, 130, 131, 132, and resolution 50. These are all needed in order to wind up the end of the year and be able to start fresh in 2019. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have our city attorney, Mr. Michael Bivens.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of council. Thank you, everyone, for coming out this evening. I would also like to echo the mayor's sentiments, Councilwoman Coniston, about that breakfast with Santa, but I would also like to add to the mayor, as well as to you, Zach, what a splendid job we did on the Winter Wonderland. That was a fantastic event. I think it's certainly elevated all of the citizens of Whitehall. It was just a great thing to be a part of. I have no official report from the city attorney's office, but I do have a comment. I challenged my office to do acts of service, and this year they challenged me in a way that was very unexpected. We volunteered at the Mid-Ohio Food Bank last Friday, and I was surprised by it. And they essentially surprised me by saying, hey, we're going to go, instead of our holiday party, we're going to go volunteer at the Mid-Ohio Food Bank. And I just want to make a public comment to anyone that's listening, as well as to anyone that's listening by Facebook. They do an outstanding job at the Mid-Ohio Food Bank. I want to commend Matt Habash for the work that he does out there. I have been a product of needing food banks as a child. And as a result of going there as an adult, I saw the dignity, the service, the facility, the quality of food, the way that the staff and all of the volunteers were out there helping those that are most vulnerable. And I would like to encourage you during these holiday seasons, if you need something, there are service agencies like the Mid-Ohio Food Bank, as well as locally, the House of Hope, that will be there to help you provide for your family. I was inspired to serve in a deeper way. I also encourage all of the citizens that are within this room, members of council and anyone that's listening, find a place to serve during this holiday season. It's more than just buying gifts for your kids and being stressed out. There are certain things that you can do for others that will uplift their lives. And so my final words for 2018 are Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, and Merry Christmas to all that are listening. And anyone who just wants to celebrate the holidays, I just pray that you have a very wonderful time.
All right, thank you. Our city auditor, Mr. Dan Miller.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no official report other than what you have before you. I'd like to thank everybody for coming and wish you a happy holidays. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Director of Development and Public Service, Mr. Zach Woodruff.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too want to thank everyone for being here and wish everyone a very happy holiday season. As City Attorney mentioned, we had a very successful Winter Wonderland and tree lighting event. We had 359 children attend the event. And I want to give a special thanks to Caitlin, who was our head elf, or as we called her for all of December, Bernard. Joe, Casey, Mary, Ty, Jeff, Lori, Teresa, and everyone else who helped with that event. It was really a team effort here, transforming City Hall. And since this is the last meeting, I do want to publicly thank all members of my staff, all of them from the building department to the development department to code enforcement, animal control, administration. I want to thank them all for the work that they did on behalf of Whitehall residents this year. I feel like they did an exceptional job, and I just want to publicly thank them for their year of service. So thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. Our Director of Public Safety, Mr. Van Gregg.
I do not have an official report, just wanted to say thanks for coming and everyone have a happy and safe holidays.
All right, thank you, sir. Our treasurer, Mr. Steve Quinzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Echoing what Van said, I have no official report, but happy holidays, everyone.
All right, thank you, sir. Well, the following officials' reports have been filed in the council office. We have the mayor's report to council for November 2018, the auditor's expense report for November 2018, the auditor's bank report for November 2018, the auditor's statements of cash position report for November 2018, and the auditor's revenue report for November 2018. We've also received several reports from the treasurer's office, and they include the investment report for November 2018, the activity by fund report for November 2018, and finally the treasurer's fund reconciliation report for November 2018. Those are all the reports we have received under communications, petitions, and claims. We do have the minutes from the December 6, 2018 meeting of the Planning Commission, and we have received a notice from the Ohio Division of Liquor Control for a new D2 liquor permit for Tranquil Lady Incorporated, 4263 East Main Street, LLC, Whitehall, Ohio, 43213. Those are all the communications, petitions, and claims. That brings us to our public hearing for the evening on ordinance 1112018. It's amending the zoning map attached to chapter 1122 of the 1970 codified ordinances of the city of Whitehall, Ohio, and as subsequently amended, allowing a special permit under 1123.12C4 to allow Ohio Power to operate and construct a new electrical substation on property located at 200 Schofield Drive, parcel number 090-008369, 090-008353, 090-008370, and 090-008350, owned by Big Green Investments, LLC. So I will open this public hearing at this time, and if there are any proponents here to speak on its behalf, now is your opportunity.
Hi, City Council. My name's Nicole Brickana. I represent Ohio Power Company, aka American Electric Power. As stated, we are looking to split property owned by Big Green Investments to construct and operate an electric station. And so with that, we've also applied for a special use permit, which is being heard at the same time. So I will open the floor to any questions. Obviously, we've presented this before the Planning Commission, and they have recommended approval of this. But we're here to answer any questions that you have, understanding that we have searched in the area for other sites and come to this conclusion of site. We did look at airport property. Obviously, our structures are too tall for that, so there's obviously limits there. We did look in neighboring communities, but there's just not opportunity there from a spacing standpoint.
From a what?
I'm sorry?
From a what
Spacing standpoint?
Spacing standpoint.
Yep. So, and also, we do plan to, with regard to the Etna Hamilton Road area, once this station is built, we would decommission the station that we have there at that corner, and ultimately have a conversation with the city as to whether they would want to acquire that site as well.
So what is this facility and why do we need it?
So it is an electrical station, substation, and ultimately, because the equipment at the existing facility is aged and outdated, and it's just not up to the standard of providing electricity for the area, we need to rebuild or expand the existing station, and we'd like to rebuild and remove that station that's currently existing.
Well, this new substation result in a rate increase for any of the consumers, and if so, how much would that be, if at all?
Honestly, Rob, do you know that answer? And I'm sorry, we have some other folks from AEP.
That's fine.
Just in case.
But I think a lot of people would be interested in that.
Yeah, good question. I don't have an answer for that. I do not believe that that's the case. But I mean, all I can say is that I can get an answer to that question.
I would guess that it's just, I mean, it's probably in your planning and it's gonna be absorbed by everybody. I mean,
Yeah, and-
no-
and
Yeah,
so-
in
Right,
other
I mean,
words, there
there's
will
always
be
gonna
a
be
charge.
an increase, it's not,
Well,
it's
and here's
not.
the deal, though, for the station site, there's not an increase, we actually have to go get a rate increase overall, so.
Right,
it's
that's
not
what I'm saying, there's
Yes.
always gonna be an increase which
That's right.
incorporates everything,
That's right.
all this kind of
So that would
planning.
be a
going on.
state matter, and so we would have to go before a different, authority to get a rate increase overall for Ohio, not just for this station site.
Okay, so if there is an increase in the future, it would involve the whole state, not just this
Correct.
community?
That's right.
How big is the space, once you put all these parcels together, what kind of land is there, how much?
It's only like 3-point-something acres. I apologize, I don't have that right here with me.
And
Yeah,
closer
but
to
it's,
4?
it only amounts to be 3-point-something acres because we took that piece and then there's an acre sort of along Highland too that we would be merging for that build.
So the overall size of the new
Substation.
substation is 1.3 acres?
No, it's 3
No,
point.
3 point.
3 point?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, I thought, okay, I got my point the wrong place.
yeah. No, that's fine.
So really what is happening is Etna Road is 40 kV
That's right.
and you need to get up to 69.
Mhm.
So in order to meet future demands, and I think it says in item B, under special permit and rezoning application, that some of those areas are like Columbus Airport and their expansion plans, and the 40K won't meet that, so one option is to upgrade Etna Road. Also, not only Etna Road, but other stations throughout greater Columbus area were also required or looked at that need to be upgraded. But in this paperwork, it says here that requires substantial investment. Is that correct?
Mhm.
So it's cheaper for you guys to locate there on Poth Road and put that station in there to serve the entire area.
That's correct.
I guess my question is, one of the current concerns we have is, and I don't know the answer to this, I didn't read all the hints 2 and 4s and where everything was going. Could you describe, first of all, that new substation, the power that will supply it so it can step down to 69 kV? Where's that coming from? And then where is it going, like toward the airport? In other words, how would, say, Hamilton Road be affected?
So I will defer to an engineer or planning, someone. So this is Rob Richardson. He is also an employee of Ohio Power Company.
Good evening. I am what we call a distribution planning engineer, and I'm the sponsor of the project, so to speak. There's one correction. It would be going to 138 kV. We have an existing transmission line that parallels Poth Road right now, and we would be tapping into that line to serve this new station. And with the intent, once we get the new station built, that the Etna Road station would be retired and decommissioned. And hopefully down the road, not too distant down the road, the entire 40 kV system that goes through Whitehall now and ties down into other stations throughout the Columbus metropolitan area, that would be retired also. So those.
So not to interrupt you, those poles down Etna Road would come out?
Eventually, yes, sir.
Okay.
So we would tap as, there's two points of interconnection with that 138 kV line that's there now along Poth Road. One would be right off of Poth Road coming down Highland Court, I think the name of it is. And then the other would be off of, is it Scarborough Road? Schofield, I'm sorry, excuse me. So there would be a loop in and out, so that makes the reliability much better when you have two separate paths in, as opposed to having one pole line. If you have a problem with one pole line and that's your only route in, and you have an issue with that, then your whole substation goes out. So you try to diversify that by having two paths in. So that would be the reasoning behind that.
So you have the poles like you have over at James and Livingston, those really, really big metal
The new poles would have to be, I'm not the transmission design engineer, so I can't comment exactly what they would look like, but they would be single pole steel structures. They are pretty big, but only the new poles that we would have to go to the station would be that way.
How many of those-
Existing
would that be?
How many of those
Existing
poles
line.
would there be? How many of those poles would there be?
We're estimating somewhere around 6 or 8, is that right? And
And that's an approximate, and we
that's an
could-
approximate number.
and we
So that's
could,
roughly 3 on each side, or 4 on each side going to
Something
Poth
like
Road.
Right.
And
That
that's
has not
it?
been engineered yet.
So how would you supply power from that station to the airport authority complex?
Well, we have existing distribution feeders now, and we would come out of our substation underground with a duct, what we call a ducted manhole system. So all of our distribution feeders coming out of the new Poth station would be constructing a ducted manhole system within streets or sidewalks or whatever we can manage to get in, and it would tie into our existing infrastructure. And any new feeders would be also come out underground also.
So then, you're not gonna be required to put any more 138 up Hamilton Road? You already have existing 138 service there?
Yes, sir, as far as I know.
So there'd be
Again, I'm not the transmission.
no need for any new structures up
No,
Hamilton
sir.
Road?
No, any poles that you would see on Hamilton Road or anything that would be changed out would have to be changed out anyhow due to maintenance issues or anything, but not as a requirement of this project.
And it does say in your paperwork that plans for the new distribution voltage lines are to place them underground and tie back into existing facilities currently
Yes, sir.
serviced by Etna Road.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So in the residential area, there'll be no new poles required there?
Maybe just if we have to come out underground to tie into an existing overhead line, if we do have overhead distribution lines out in the community. If we have to tie back into them, we might have to set a pole just to riser up into that from the underground system to tie it into the overhead system. But as far as building a new distribution line, I do not foresee that happening.
Because you've replaced a lot of poles on part of the inner city, as far as Etna Road and stuff. There've been a lot of poles replaced there.
Correct. Any existing facilities would remain that way, except for tying back into that existing facility. That would be all new, and we would try to make as much as that we can underground. Like, that's the plan.
Okay.
Several years ago, on the northwest side of Columbus, Dublin, I don't know, somewhere up in that area, they had a weather event that brought down, and it may have actually been in Westerville, but it brought down a lot of poles, metal poles. Are these the same type of poles? And if they are, along the same lines, what design changes have been made to eliminate that type of situation to where power was out for a lot of people for many days because these poles came down in admittedly an extreme weather situation, but I don't think there's anybody in this room who would not deny that we get a lot of extreme weather situations in Columbus, Ohio. And so I'm curious as to, if AEP or Ohio Power has come up with some solutions for poles like that and, to eliminate problems like that in the future.
I can't truthfully comment on that. Again, I'm not a transmission line engineer, so I'm not at liberty to make a statement on the behalf of. We can definitely find some answers for you and get back with you.
Okay. Well, I would think that once you saw that something fails at a certain point, that something would be changed to prevent that in the future.
We do have, as part of our system, I remember me earlier mentioning having 2 separate paths into the station. Much like in your house, you have breakers in that station. And so if one section of the line goes out, that breaker would open up and isolate that section, but you would still have the feed in from the other direction. So that would help in reducing the outcome of a weather event or something like that, because many times you get it, it's isolated to one section of line, so you can isolate that and still have a feed in the other direction. By having a dual feed in, that would definitely lessen the opportunity for a weather event to cause an event. It would take out the power to everyone. But going back to your question about new standards or a different standard for the transmission poles, I'm not liberty to comment on that.
Okay, so, and earlier I heard you say that there are already underground transmission lines going to the out Hamilton Road to the airport? No.
The distribution lines are.
Distribution lines.
There is some underground. The new stuff would be underground out to that areas. And we were looking preliminarily at how we would tie back into our existing system, and we are pretty certain it's going to have to be done underground, or else we would have to put a bunch of poles in. And it would, we know that that would be unsightly and probably unreasonable to put that many feeders in one pole line. So you're talking 3, 4, 5 feeders, and you can't stack that many of them up on a pole. So that would be very unsightly when we would ask that.
I was with the impression that I attended the planning commission hearing, and I was with the impression that there were going to be tall poles going north, and the answer was, well, if we didn't like it, we could pay to have them buried, and I just didn't understand that attitude.
Well, we may be getting some overlap between when I talk about transmission and distribution.
Yeah, so I'm confused there because
The transmission poles are the big poles that really you're all really concerned about. They are going to be needed to tie into our existing transmission line, 4 to 6 to 8 poles, whatever that number turns out to be once we do the engineering study, to get into their station. Then it steps down through the transformer and comes back out to a lower voltage, which we call the distribution voltage. And that's what you see more commonly going down your streets overhead. That's those power lines. They're our lower voltage, they're 13 kV. So any new construction from the 13 kV side would be underground.
And nothing of the high voltage going north on Hamilton, above ground.
We have no plans of doing anything, the high voltage, the 138 kV, no, no new. The only thing, it would be pretty much isolated to that Poth Road, Schofield, whatever it's called.
Schofield.
Sorry.
And that,
But right in that area is where the new poles will be concentrated.
What voltage are you running up to the airport?
13 kV.
Okay.
I have a couple questions.
Yes,
First one, I think you guys have already given an answer, so that'll be the easy one. If you have contacted or other areas, and how was Whitehall selected to be the receiver for the substation?
The biggest issue is we have the Aetna station that's sort of centralized in Whitehall. We recognize that that's an obsolete facility. It needs to be upgraded. The parts are getting hard to find to replace the equipment that's there. So we need to do something with it. That is, Whitehall itself is where our most centralized load center is at. So we need to get it as close to the load center, but be realistic that the northern part of Whitehall area is where you have opportunities for load growth also. So so it made sense, and it's also closest to our 138 kV transmission. If we put that station further south, now we have to start building more transmission, bigger pole line structures to serve that, because the 40 kV transmission line would not be adequate. It would definitely have to be upgraded to standards that would meet the 138 kV standards. So the Poth Road site was chosen because its proximity to the 138 kV line, and also balancing it to the fact that it's closer to our load center, which is where our Aetna Road station is at now.
Okay. the follow-up was that it's proposed in service, or the new substation in 2022, and estimated removal of the old station is set for 2024. So, I guess my question is, why would it take so long after the new substation is built to move whatever's in the old substation and remove that?
Honestly,
2 years plus, it would be an additional 1 year for us to probably do anything with that site, so that would be almost 3 years. So I'm looking at the timeliness of it.
those numbers can be flexible. We like to get all our construction done before we start doing any retirement, because it's pretty complicated switching arrangements, and operationally it can be pretty cumbersome. So we like to allow ourselves time. Will it take us 2 years to retire that station? Probably not, but it probably could take up to a year at least to do that.
What would the typical downtime be for a customer during the transition when you're transferring from one substation to another? There's going to be some temporary outages, or is it going to be simultaneous?
It should be pretty seamless, because the customer's voltage that they're going to be receiving will not change. So it would be a matter of just switching, and we can do that all while both stations are still energized.
There was a gentleman who was at the meeting, Alan Focus Floors. He asked about property values. Could you address that?
Yeah, so we've done studies in the area, and I believe development has also reached out to some agents in the area, and there's no devalue of property having stations nearby or lines for that matter. So, and we expressed that to the gentleman.
Okay.
Would there be a need for this upgrade if Port Columbus was not planning expansion?
I was getting ready to address that. Thank you for bringing that up. Absolutely. Our 40 kV sub-transmission system, again, it's very obsolete. We don't build our systems at that voltage anymore. The equipment has become obsolete. Parts are hard to get. We are getting very close to the limiting capacity of that system. Our transmission folks are telling us, you really are going to have to come up with solutions for any new load in your areas that are served from this 40 kV system. So, this project had been slated for later down the road, but the growth on the whole 40 kV system, which Whitehall is served from, it is getting close to meeting our limiting capacity. So we need to do that just to serve significant loads within your town itself, even without the airport.
And who all will be served out of that substation besides Whitehall and the airport? Who else would be on that?
To the east of James, not James, but yes, it is James Road, isn't it? James Road goes north-south, and
So you're talking DC, or the Defense Supply, whatever it's called.
well, the Defense Supply
Change the name all the time, I can't remember.
Yeah, they have their own substation.
They have their own substation, Defense Supply does.
Okay.
So this does not service Bexley?
Back towards Bexley area, yeah.
Okay.
Not very, but honestly, I would, my estimation, we don't know what the airport load would be yet. If any, they may not do anything. We have not got any commitments from them. But 95% of the load out of this new station would probably be serving Wyoming. That's just a rough estimation.
Could you touch on, because, it's the, what do they say, the 900-pound gorilla in the room. I mean, could you touch on the burying? I know some folks have asked about, well, why can't they bury it? Well, it's too expensive. If we want to bury it, we're welcome to pay for it. And obviously that's, could you just, address that?
If you just buried, let's just talk about a typical trench and putting conduit in ground, just with this type of voltage. It would be roughly 10 times more expensive as an overhead line. And you throw in a duct and manhole system, which has manholes every so often, that even adds another order of cost to that also. So we're probably talking 12 to 15 times, probably, more expensive than an overhead line. And that's not, I'm not talking even about the transmission lines, I'm just talking about our distribution 13 kV lines. So I don't know a cost on the transmission.
Okay, so you, I mean, like
It's
3 million
phenomenally
versus
more.
15 million, you have no idea as far as the,
Ed, did you have a?
I'm Ed Mayer, I'm the station engineering supervisor for covering Columbus area. From a transmission standpoint, overhead to underground, the cost difference is right around, I think, about 8 times more expensive. I'm thinking the cost per mile for overhead is somewhere around 3 million a mile at 138,000 volts. And for the underground portion, it has some benefits where it's less impacted by weather because it's in the ground. Its downside is if when it breaks or has an issue, it takes a very long time to fix it. Upwards of 3 to 6 months worth of time in order to fix an underground issue versus an overhead issue where you can see it, you know what's wrong. We can get that back together in from hours to maybe a day or so, depending on the amount of damage that storm would cause. So we can get it back up and the system reliability back together a lot quicker on an overhead line versus an underground type line.
thank you.
Do you have
So
any
just, well, I mean, just at a quick blush, then you're talking 3 million versus 24 million is what you're saying per mile. Just,
Yeah,
okay,
that's correct.
thank you.
Do you have any examples in central Ohio of outages underground that has taken 3 to 6 months to repair?
Yes, we've had some issues on the west side in our, we have an underground line. It goes from Hilliard to Dublin, and we've had multiple outages on those lines over the years. Hopefully, I think we've got all the issues taken care of with that, but we've had, I think, at least 3 separate instances where the line was out, and it was in at least the 3-month to 6-month range.
And what was the cause of the outage?
The underground cables, they go for only a certain amount of distance that you get reeled on as far as transporting it. And then you have to have a splice location where you splice 2 ends together. And it was at those splice locations that we had a number of failures, and we've actually, we're proactive. We actually, after we had a few of them, we actually replaced the remaining ones, just to pretty much try to start new, thinking that there was maybe an issue with the product that we got, splicing product that we had originally. So that's was the reason for.
So it's material failure in the splice,
Correct.
not the application of the splice.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm not 100% sure on that, if it was an installation thing or a material thing.
And what took so long to find that issue?
It's not finding the issue. We found the issue within a day or so. When it's getting the materials, we have some spare cable on hand that we were able to use, but also getting a company in to do the splicing. And some of it we actually had to get replacement cable that took time to obtain as well.
So AEP does not do those repairs herself?
Correct, we do not.
Contracted out.
Yes.
Could you-
People that have that expertise.
And yet you were still able to supply electricity to all the customers in the area.
Correct. As far as I know, I don't, issue that I'm aware of to take out the whole substation, but the potential's there. You have just two sources and you have one down for a long period of time. The risk is there for the other one to have an issue.
But you still had two sources, so you were able to continue with service with a
With the
reasonable,
remaining
5-hour break or, something like that, a typical power outage. I find it strange that you're not inclined to bury the utility, but if I were to build a new house, I would be encouraged to put it underground. In fact, when I built my house, I was encouraged. The guy said, put it underground. If anything goes wrong, we pull that cable out, we pull a new one in, and you're done in an hour, as opposed to another. So I'm confused. I don't understand why you would encourage the public to do it, but you don't seem to embrace it for your own selves. Embrace that idea for yourselves.
Part of the difference, I think, is just the difference in the voltage and the magnitude there. It's just a different product. It just takes one more expertise as far as the installation and repair process with that, and it also getting the cable itself is more of a specialized cable. It's not as readily available as stuff that goes through the neighborhoods and subdivisions and so forth. There's a lot of that because it goes through a lot of neighborhoods and so forth. And
how far are we talking that would need to go underground?
Well, depends if how you would look for underground or not.
Well, and can we back up real quickly? I'm sorry. I'd like to also speak to, so if we're looking at transmission size underground, what are we talking from a width standpoint?
The size of the cable,
Right.
we're talking cable that big,
And then how much width do we need for clearance of that underground from a
Let's
transmission?
see, we require 15 foot on each side.
Okay.
For an
We're
easement.
Right, but we're talking 30 feet coming
Yeah.
through. Okay. And then distribution is what? Approximately 15?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. So I just wanted to sort of report the difference in the transmission width versus going into your home. So it's just one bigger for transmission.
And add to that, even if you went into this new station with an underground sub-transmission or transmission line, we would still have to have some poles added to riser underground, up from the underground. So there would still be new poles out on Poth Road. Because we can't really put them on the existing poles.
And those poles would be a whole lot better, or bigger, excuse me. I'm trying to think, we talked about the poles out at James and Livingston, I've heard that a little bit. These would be a lot huger, larger poles diameter-wise, because you have to bring the cables up, and then you have to protect those cables, and then you put a strap.
Also, the
around
cables
those.
run through the pole itself on the interior.
Well, in this instance, coming from underground up, they're risers, so yes.
Yeah, okay.
Right, but a typical structure where there's a line going down the street, there's not.
Right. And we're only talking about on Schofield to Pop,
Correct.
not up Hamilton Road anywhere.
That is correct.
Right.
Yeah, see, and that was part of our angst is, I don't know how we got, or misunderstood that this would need to go north on Hamilton Road, like down near the park, to get to the airport, for example. So there's been a lot of, I think, in my mind, misinformation, and you've cleared a ton of it up.
I think it goes back to there's some confusion of what's a transmission line.
And distribution.
Hamilton Road, need to be putting some distribution lines underground up through there, but not transmission lines.
Right, and they're underground, and that's what your thing stated here. So the hangup was that, by choosing Etna Road, or by choosing the spot on Schofield, that it saved AEP a lot of money based on your analysis, because you would have had to have improved several 40 kV stations. So we're like, okay, if you're saving a lot of money, and the original thought that stuff was going in the air down Hamilton Road, that's where it got all tangled up, and I appreciate you clearing that up.
Yeah, the biggest improvement will be Etna Station. That is the immediate improvement.
So the
just improving
brownouts and the poor people in Ward 2 won't experience that, because you have redundant circuitry. Well, redundant circuitry at more load, or supplying more load. So,
we still would have other 40 kV stations, and so the immediate impact on all these other stations is not going to be happening just with the installation of the Hawk Road
right, and then the perk is, in time, Etna Road, all that comes out, and then the poles down Etna Road will also be removed. That is a big plus.
Right. It will definitely be a very much improved aesthetically.
I'm sure somebody's gonna ask us, you see these, power lines, is there, you hear about health concerns, anything of that nature. Can you address that a little bit?
There would be no, I can address that.
These aren't those colossal power lines like you see going down the highway.
It's not the same voltage.
Okay, so.
There would be no new risk with the transmission lines.
Then what's currently
Really,
existing?
no.
Okay, thank you.
I was part of my job as a power quality engineer at one time. I did EMF studies. And I would go into homes and do measurements and so forth. And it was pretty interesting to find out you get more electrical magnetic radiation from your alarm clock than you would from a 69 kV line that's a half a mile away from you. Distance is your friend when it comes to power and EMF.
All right, I'm sure somebody will ask,
I scared a mother to death one time with showing her that her kid was 2 feet from the television, how much the EMF was from that TV as opposed to a transmission line was.
All right, thank you.
So, the underground lines, the main reason for outages is failure of the splice or splicing material versus overhead lines. Outage reasons are due to mainly what?
Overhead lines, you tend to have weather events, trees, or if there's trees in the area, or it could be vehicle accident.
Dumb squirrel,
animal, yes.
But as long as it's installed properly, the underground is much more reliable.
Yes, but you also have to do the maintenance on it more really. It definitely has a shorter shelf life, underground wood things, and overhead line. We have overhead lines that's been out there for 80 years. You would expect an underground line to be 40, 50 at most, probably, before you'd have to probably go back and replace it.
And what causes that?
Because the underground cable has what's called a dielectric sheathing around it, and that over time will break down because of the high voltage. It will just start cracking. You know how your tires on your cars, automobiles sort of dry rot over time? Sort of that same principle, except it's built into that polyethylene or sheathing that goes around it. They call it tracking. Dig-ins is another issue with underground cable.
Then it's encased in concrete, isn't it, after it's run through piping?
You'd be surprised at people who still try to dig through that. But yes, you're correct.
Any other questions? Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, it's time for a verification. No, it's not.
No.
Who else would like to come up and speak for this ordinance?
So I'll be quite brief since this project is well covered. I just wanted to say I appreciate the patience from council and the applicant as staff tries to review this. Again, we haven't had a new substation here in so many odd years, and I'm not really familiar with transmissions and voltages, so some of the confusion, Councilman Bailey, I can certainly shoulder some of that, so I apologize. But basically, from a staff standpoint, again, we want to evaluate every project as what's best for the city. And if we're working under the assumption that a substation has to go somewhere within Whitehall, from a professional planning perspective, I would say that a substation in an industrial area is better suited in an industrial area rather than a area next to an elementary school. And that's what it really boils down to simply when staff is looking at this project, if you assume that we need a substation somewhere in Whitehall.
Yeah, and Joe, to support that thought, it's going down a road that most of the people in Whitehall don't know is even there.
Sure, and
They
we
don't
certainly want to
travel
also be
along
respectful to our, all the industries that have been there recently, certainly along Hoff Road the past 10 years with all the projects we've had there. We certainly want to keep them happy, and we certainly hear their concerns. We had one neighbor, as I mentioned, attend the planning commission meeting, but again, if any of them were to speak to me, I would say, again, from a land use perspective, for what's best for the city as a whole, I would say that this site is preferable to the current Etna Road site for a substation, under the assumption that we need a substation somewhere in Whitehall.
Thanks.
And just to be sure, like, that one new road that goes to the north off of Poth, wasn't there there's some warehouse kind of back there, mixed use, what is that?
The new road that
The new road that goes, just past Glazers or around Glazers?
Oh, you're talking about the driveway to.
Access
the
road.
Yeah.
Right, the giant driveway to Air South too.
Right.
Okay.
So there, I mean, there's no little lot back there that this could be tucked back into a little closer to the railroad, for example?
So, I mean, the short answer to that is no. All of that property back there is either used as active detention or is building and parking lot now. And what I heard today from AEP was this site is as close to the overhead utility that's already existing, the already existing transmission lines that are running down Poth Road. If you put it back by the railroad tracks, ultimately, if you put it over there, it's going to be closer to someone. I mean, so if you put it over there, you'd be closer to FedEx, you'd be next to FedEx, you'd be close to Glazers. I mean, there'd be somebody who it's always next to, right? But it would be further away from the overhead existing transmission lines that run down Poth Road. This site is closer to Poth Road.
Okay.
And we've lived with it beside a school and a restaurant and a carryout for years.
That's true.
And I mean, look, Larry isn't, too bad, right? You live right near that.
But thank
Thank
you,
you,
Joe.
Joe.
Sure, see with the lights out.
There's a glow about him.
All right, who else would like to come forward and speak in favor of ordinance 111, 2018?
That's what I was gonna ask.
All right, is there anyone here who would like to speak in opposition to ordinance 111, 2018?
Glad to get my name.
Yeah.
I'm sure she knows it by heart. Gerald Dixon, 3877 Dudley Street. This isn't really in opposition to the legislation, but I had a question, and maybe it can be answered. But, you've got this brand-new complex going in over at Hamilton and Broad. You're trying to keep things looking nice. And the only concern that I have is the industrial section is the industrial section. But as Mr. Ryan pointed out last week, it's not an ugly type of industrial section with scrap yards and auto wrecking yards and so forth. So my question is what might be done? And, substations are not, as we've all seen around Emmett Road, pretty with the chain link fence and stuff. Is there anything that they can do to surround it at least, or keep it out of view, that it's not as ugly as substations are. Because you've got this other stuff, which you've got these grand plans for, clear around it, and the people moving in there, it's just not gonna be that far from it. And people drive up and down Schofield and up and down Poff, and so that was my only concern, is that
Hasn't that been addressed in the?
Yeah, so I mean, I can speak to that. So that issue came up at Planning Commission. So there's a couple things. From a screening standpoint, this substation will be screened by other buildings that are along Schofield and along Poff. In addition to that, the height of the general equipment is how tall, generally? So it's 74 feet. There's no amount of wall or screening or those kind of things that you could do to adequately hide it in such a way. But that's why, as Joe and I evaluated this, having it kind of be tucked behind the businesses on that side of Poff and on that side of Schofield helps that somewhat, because again, from the street, those buildings are gonna, obviously to your eye appear taller and do more screening. We did talk to them about that. Increasing, going from a chain link fence to a brick wall actually could potentially cause additional safety concerns with not being able to see if anyone's getting near the equipment. And so again, as we evaluated that portion of it, what we ultimately came up with was that the existing buildings and businesses that are around that actually provide that screening from the person who's driving by, short of 74 feet.
Well, I know that based on the amount of work and expense and everything else that you put in making these corridors so nice, and want to make them nice, that would certainly be a concern of yours. I hadn't heard anything about it, certainly not back in the committee room.
Yeah.
So I was curious.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward at this time in opposition to ordinance 111-2018? All right, I will now close the public hearing on ordinance 111-2018. And now it's time for something we've all waited for all evening long. It's the verification of copies. I'm going to ask Ms. Frymark to please call the roll on whether each member of council was given a piece of each item of legislation listed on the agenda and prior to the meeting, and including any add-on legislation.
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Bailey?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
All right, we're going to go on with our ordinances and resolutions for the evening. First up, we have ordinance 105-2018. It's making appropriations for current general fund expenses, street expenses, and state highway materials expenses during the period from January 1, 2019 to December 31, 2019, in the total sum of $34,108,296 and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 105-2018 and move to adopt.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Ms. Heck for introduction and approval of ordinance 105-2018. Questions or comments? Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Bailey?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Ordinance 105-2018 has been adopted. Our next ordinance is 109-2018. Make sure I got the right thing. Making an appropriation for certain special revenue, internal service, and fiduciary accounts for the calendar year 2019 in the total sum of $15,733,912.48 and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 109-2018 and move to amend as read and adopt.
Second?
I I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Mr. Rodriguez to amend ordinance 109, 2018 as read. Questions or comments? Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
All right, ordinance 109, 2018 has been amended. Now I'm going to need a motion for adoption.
Oh, I thought I said and adopt. If you
I don't think
prefer-
you can amend and adopt in the same, I would prefer that we also now have a motion for adoption, just to be able to say.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 109, 2018 and move to adopt.
Second?
All right, I now have a motion by Mr. Bailey, and a second by Mr. Rodriguez for adoption of ordinance 109, 2018. Questions or comments? Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
Ordinance 109, 2018 has been adopted.
And thank you, Mr. President, because that's the way I prefer to do it too.
Yeah, I feel a lot more comfortable doing it that way. That way there's no questions. Okay, next up, we have ordinance 111, 2018. It's amending the zoning map attached to chapter 1122 of the 1970 codified ordinances of the city of Whitehall, Ohio, and as subsequently amended, allowing a special permit under 1123.12 C4 to allow Ohio Power Company to operate and construct a new electrical substation on property located at 200 Schofield Drive, parcel numbers 090-008-369, 090-008-353, 090-008-370, and 090-008-350, owned by Big Green Investments, LLC.
Mr. President, before I go on, is everyone satisfied enough, or do we still want to table this?
I would like to table.
Okay, I'll bring it up for a table, and we'll see how the vote goes then. I'd like to introduce ordinance 111, 2018, and move to have it tabled to January 15, 2019.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Rodriguez and a second by Mr. Morrison to table ordinance 111, 2018 to January 15, 2019. Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck,
No.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
No.
Rodriguez.
No.
Elmore,
No.
Coniston.
No.
Ordinance 111, 2018 has not been tabled.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I'd like to introduce ordinance 111, 2018, move for its adoption.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Rodriguez and a second by Mr. Morrison for introduction and adoption of ordinance 111, 2018. Questions or comments? Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
No.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
Ordinance 111, 2018 has been adopted. It's the last item of legislation we have under third reading. Under second reading, we begin with, and we have several of them, ordinance 113, 2018. This is being read by title only. It's amending section 161.361 of the codified ordinances of the city of Whitehall, Ohio, entitled Salary of the Mayor, and declaring an emergency. As I said, that's being read by title only. Next, we have ordinance 114, 2018, amending section 161.362 of the codified ordinances of the city of Whitehall, Ohio, entitled Salary of the Attorney, and declaring an emergency. That is being read by title only. Next up, we have ordinance 115, 2018. It's amending section 161.363 of the codified ordinances of the city of Whitehall, Ohio, entitled Salary of the Auditor, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I move to amend section 161.363, effective January 1, 2022.
Second?
I have a motion by Mr. Morrison, a second by Ms. Coniston for, to amend ordinance 115-2018, section 1, that being 161.363, entitled Salary of the Auditor, to read effective as of January 1, 2022. I will continue, this part has not been amended, but so that everyone understands what the rest of the sentence is. The annual salary of the auditor is hereby fixed to be $90,000 payable in bi-weekly installments. Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Bailey?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Ordinance 115-2018 has been amended. Next, we have ordinance 116-2018, amending section 161.364 of the codified ordinances of the city of Whitehall, Ohio, entitled Salary of the Treasurer, and declaring an emergency. That's being read by title only. Next, we have ordinance 117-2018, amending section 161.36 of the codified ordinances of the city of Whitehall, Ohio, entitled Salaries of Council, and declaring an emergency. That is also being read by title only. Next in line, we have ordinance 118-2018, amending section 161.36 of the codified ordinances of the city of Whitehall, Ohio, entitled Salary of the President of Council, and declaring an emergency. That is also being read by title only. Following that, we have ordinance 120-2018. It's amending 135.16C1, titled Capital Improvement and Project Fund, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 120-2018, move for suspension of rules.
Second?
The motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Ms. Heck for introduction and suspension of all rules on ordinance 120-2018. Questions or comments? No? Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Bailey?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on ordinance 120-2018.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to adopt.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Bailey, second by Ms. Heck for adoption of ordinance 120-2018. Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Bailey?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Ordinance 120-2018 has been adopted. Our next ordinance is 122-2018, amending 135.17B1, titled Capital Equipment Replacement Reserve Fund, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 122-2018, move for suspension of rules.
Second?
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Mr. Rodriguez for introduction and suspension of all rules on ordinance 122-2018. Questions or comments? Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Bailey?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on ordinance 122-2018.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to adopt.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Bailey, second by Mr. Rodriguez for adoption of ordinance 122-2018. Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Bailey?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Ordinance 122-2018 has been adopted. Our next ordinance is 123-2018. It reads amending 161.37, titled Table of Authorized Personnel, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 123-2018 and move to amend. And that amendment would be under section 2 in parentheses labeled Police Division, under Record Clerks, part-time, instead of 1, requesting 2.
Second?
A motion by Mr. Bailey, second by Ms. Coniston to amend ordinance 123, 2018, to read, to change the table of authorized personnel from 1 to 2. Questions or comments?
Under records clerk, part-time.
Under record clerk, part-time. Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended. I'm sorry. Ordinance 123, 2018 has been amended.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll introduce ordinance 123, 2018, and move for suspension of rules.
Second?
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Ms. Coniston for introduction and suspension of all rules on 123, 2018. Questions or comments? Hell, I don't know what I'm doing right now. I'm all messed up here electronically. There we go. I'm good now. Gee. All right. Did we amend it? Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck,
I
Yes.
don't care what you're doing.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
Suspension.
Mr. President, I move to adopt.
Second?
Oh, we must have suspended the rules.
Yes.
All right. I have a motion by Mr. Bailey. See, I got all messed up here. I got marks everywhere. None of them are right. I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Ms. Coniston for adoption of ordinance 123, 2018. Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
Ordinance 123, 2018 has been adopted. Next, we have Resolution 49, 2018. It's approving the continuation of a tax exemption agreement with Wallach Communities in conjunction with the City of Whitehall Community Reinvestment Area Program and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I wish to introduce Resolution 49, 2018, and move for suspension of all rules.
Second?
I have a motion by Mr. Morrison, a second by Mr. Rodriguez for introduction and suspension of all rules on Resolution 49, 2018. Questions or comments? Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on Resolution 49, 2018.
Move to adopt.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Morrison, second by Mr. Rodriguez for adoption of Resolution 49, 2018. Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
Resolution 49, 2018 has been adopted. That's the last item of legislation we have under second readings. Under first reading, we begin with, I got so many marks on here, this is going to be hard to read. Ordinance 125, 2018. It's approving and making an appropriation transfer in the amount of let's see, $18,049.38 from various expense accounts in the general fund to the WCS Wellness Expense Account and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 125, 2018, move for suspension of rules.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Mr. Morrison for introduction and suspension of all rules on ordinance 125, 2018. Questions or comments? Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on ordinance 125, 2018.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bailey, second by Mr. Morrison for adoption of ordinance 125, 2018. Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
Ordinance 125, 2018 has been adopted. Next, we have ordinance 126, 2018. It's approving and making a supplemental appropriation of $100,000 from unappropriated monies in the general fund to the police salaries account and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 126, 2018, move for suspension of rules.
Second?
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey, a second by Ms. Coniston for introduction and suspension of all rules on ordinance 126, 2018. Questions or comments? Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on ordinance 126, 2018.
Move to adopt.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Bailey, second by Ms. Coniston for adoption of ordinance 126, 2018. Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
Ordinance 126, 2018 has been adopted. Next up is ordinance 127, 2018. It's repealing ordinance 121, 2018, authorizing and approving a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $30,000 from unappropriated monies in the Clerk of Court Computerization Fund to the Clerk of Court IT salary expense account and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 127, 2018, move for suspension of rules.
Second.
The motion by Mr. Bailey, a second by Ms. Elmore for introduction and suspension of all rules on ordinance 127, 2018. Questions or comments? Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on ordinance 127, 2018.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bailey, second by Ms. Elmore for adoption of ordinance 127, 2018. Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
All right, ordinance 127, 2018 has been adopted. Our next ordinance is 128, 2018. It's amending the zoning map attached to chapter 1122 of the 1970 codified ordinances of the city of Whitehall, Ohio, and has subsequently amending the planned apartment district development plan on property located at 540 South Hamilton Road, property owned by Hamilton Crossing Homes LLC. That's been referred to the Planning Commission for their January 3rd, 2019 meeting, and we will have a public hearing on this ordinance on January 15th, 2019. All right, next up we have ordinance 129, 2018. It's amending it doesn't look right. Ordinance 129, 2018, it's amending the zoning map attached to chapter 1122 of the 1970 codified ordinances of the city of Whitehall, Ohio, and is subsequently amended, changing the zoning on property located on Etna Road from apartment district A2 to planned apartment development, property owned by Etna Hamilton Land LLC. That's being referred to the Planning Commission for their January 3rd, 2019 meeting, and we will also have a meeting, a public hearing on that ordinance, or on this ordinance, on January 15, 2019. So that's being read by title only. Next, we have ordinance 130, 2018. It's making and approving a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $35,000 from unappropriated monies in the General Fund 101 to the radio operator salaries account and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 130, 2018, move for suspension of all rules.
Second?
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey, a second by Ms. Coniston for introduction and suspension of all rules on ordinance 130, 2018. Questions or comments? Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on ordinance 130, 2018.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to adopt.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Bailey, second by Ms. Coniston for adoption of ordinance 130, 2018. Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
Ordinance 130, 2018 has been adopted. Our next ordinance is 131, 2018. It's authorizing and approving the following appropriation transfers in the total amount of $17,500 from appropriated monies in the general fund expense accounts to, of $11,800 from the 101-151-500 staff expense account to the Medicare expense account, and $5,700 from the contingency expense account to the PERS expense account and declaring an emergency.
Very good, Mr. President.
Yeah.
I'd like to introduce ordinance 131, 2018, move for suspension of rules.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Mr. Morrison for introduction and suspension of all rules on ordinance 131, 2018. Questions or comments? Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
Ordinance, the rules have been suspended on ordinance 131, 2018.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bailey, second by Mr. Morrison for adoption of ordinance 131, 2018. Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
Ordinance 131, 2018 has been adopted. Our next ordinance is 132, 2018. It's approving a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $180,000 from unappropriated monies in the general fund to the police and fire pension expense account and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 132, 2018, move for suspension of all rules.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Ms. Coniston for introduction and suspension of all rules on ordinance 132, 2018. Questions or comments? Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison.
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on ordinance 132, 2018.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bailey, second by Ms. Coniston for adoption of ordinance 132, 2018. Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison.
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
Ordinance 132, 2018 has been adopted. Next and lastly, we have Resolution 50, 2018. It's resolving to approve then and now certificates and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce resolution 50, 2018, move for suspension of rules.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Ms. Heck for introduction and suspension of all rules on Resolution 50, 2018. Questions or comments? Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison.
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on Resolution 50, 2018.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bailey, second by Ms. Heck for adoption of Resolution 50, 2018. Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison.
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
Resolution 50, 2018 has been adopted. It is our last item of legislation before us this evening. And there's a big crowd out there this evening. It's our second opportunity for poll public. Please do not rush the podium, one at a time. Please state your name and address, all of you who will be coming up for the record.
That was a long one.
Right there.
There was a long one.
Gerald Dixon, 3877 Doty Street. I'll be brief because I'm sure, like me, most of you have to use the restroom. I want to thank Mr. Bivens for the inspiration of his leadership as an elected official. And not to single him out, and I'm sorry to do that, but it's the things you say, it's the way you say them that are very nice. So thank you for that. I did want to give a shout out real quick to my brother, known in the community as Coach Mike Dixon. It's his 60th birthday, and I want to say happy birthday to him. I don't know if he watches this or not. I also wanted to say thank you to those that asked so many questions. One of the last ones you asked, I was going to ask about EMFs and health concerns, because you'll be living very close to this.
Right,
my understanding. So I thought all your questions were excellent. I'm so thrilled to hear you ask them and stand up for what you feel is right. And you said no tonight, and I appreciate that. It's not the no in itself, it's that you said, I have reservations, and I understood what you were talking about. I appreciate that, and I wanted to say that to you here. And finally, I just wanted to say, to quote Attorney Bivens, Happy Kwanzaa, Merry Christmas, and Happy Hanukkah, if it's still in effect in your view as well. Okay? And Happy New Year as well.
All right. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward at this time?
Anyone?
Bueller?
All right. Well, that brings us to Community Date Board. I have a feeling there's a holiday coming up. Might want to talk about that a little bit, I don't know.
There's a holiday coming up.
There's caroling.
Yes,
Caroling
and we're
tomorrow
going,
night?
yes, we're going Christmas caroling tomorrow night. And it's supposed to be in 40s and,
It's not too bad.
yes,
Yeah, nice
exactly,
weather.
so it should be fun. Meet at the police station tomorrow at 7 o'clock, and we'll have books, and you don't have to know how to sing, because I certainly don't, and I will try it anyhow.
All right, who else has something for Community Date Board? I know it is the end of the year, and there's only a few days left. All right, we're going to move on to poll council, and we'll begin with Ms. Heck.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will keep it short. Thank you for those that tuned in online. Thank you, Jerry, for staying all the way to the end. Thank you for the others that spoke tonight and gave presentations, even though they left. Maybe they're watching at home. And I hope everybody has a happy holiday season.
All right, thank you. Mr. Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also would like to thank all the presenters. Everyone made excellent presentations with what they was doing here, and thank everyone for coming. Wish everybody a happy holiday season and a very safe one.
All right, thank you. Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I echo what Joanna and Larry shared. Merry Christmas, and, remember the reason for the season, this holiday. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, Jerry, you forgot Festivus for the rest of us. Yearling Road looks beautiful, Mayor. I know I've seen it enough times, but tonight it just glittered a little more beautiful, like for some reason. Breakfast with Santa was fantastic. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. And then Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone.
All right, thank you. Ms. Elmore.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for everybody that has tuned in, for everybody that stayed. I want to thank ETSS for their passionate presentation, and to just make available or talk about the different services that are available to such a diverse and multicultural community. I'm sure everybody that's even listening, even if you don't, if it doesn't suit you, it most certainly must suit somebody that you know, so please refer them to the services that were mentioned. Also, thank you for everybody that did a presentation today, and AEP for clarification, and all the questions that were asked to bring clarification and to actually visualize what that is going to actually look like, and the update to the phase 2 and 3. That was really good. So I appreciate all of that. Also, I just want to say, this is a time of year where, some people aren't with you anymore, and some people are. Love your loved ones, love your friends, show them appreciation, invite them over for a meal. It's not a bad idea to go volunteer at the Mid-Ohio Food Bank or Hope. If you have any items to give, and most of all, give the gift that everybody should be giving anyway, it is love. And so I just want to thank everybody here. Please have a safe holiday, Merry Christmas, Kwanzaa, Happy Kwanzaa, and all those other happiness that this time brings. Thank you.
Well, there was certainly a lot I was going to say, but it's late. I want to thank so many people up here that helped out with Breakfast with Santa, and I've told you all so many times that WCCA could never do it alone. I mean, it's just very few members that are with it. So we thank you for coming back there and making the pancakes and serving the pancakes and helping out with everything that went on there. Hanukkah is over now. I get to celebrate Christmas. I say that that's the wonderful thing about the season. It's all about making memories. It's all about love. It's all about family. And I think everybody should share and celebrate everything. Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, happy birthday, Mike, Coach Mike. Hopefully you're watching, and we'll see you in 2019.
All right, well, it's down to me. I want to thank everyone for being here. Certainly, we did have a bigger crowd than what we have right now, but I do appreciate those of you who stuck it out for the 2.5 hours. It was long. And it gets a little confusing sometimes, especially when I'm having electrical or technical problems.
That's what the substation will fix.
Yeah.
That's why we
You know,
need
I
that.
did want to ask them a question is, when I'm in my boat and I'm under that big transmission line up at Hoover, how come the hair is standing up on my arms and in my head? What actually stands out from the sides doesn't stand out on top. And how come all the fish are under that transmission line? I would like to know. And it buzzes and crackles and pops and makes all kinds of noises, so.
So do I.
Yeah.
He also makes my hair stand up.
Yeah.
Mr. President.
Not yet. I just want to say,
let's keep this going.
It's been a good year. I hope this coming year is just as prosperous for Whitehall and its residents as what this past one has been. We got a couple holidays coming up here in the next week or two. Let's all enjoy them with our families and spend some time with our loved ones and whoever else you might want to spend some time with. I'm not going to get into that. You all can do that on your own. Well, might be your neighbor.
Mr. President.
Second.
Yes, I think it's time for adjournment. And so we have no more official business before us this year.
Mr. President, we don't want to adjourn.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do.
We're
Yeah, we
adjourning
do.
this meeting.
Reconvene back
We will
there.
reconvene.
Yeah, because we haven't been here long enough.
We are adjourning this meeting.
And
You, Mr. President, you can't do that.
Why can't I?
Well, how do you reconvene a meeting once it's
What do you mean?
adjourned? It hasn't been called.
Pursuant to Ohio Revised Code,
Right, before you adjourn this meeting,
Yeah,
that
well-
another meeting in the back hasn't been called.
No,
Or ever.
he would have, if we're going into executive session, he would have to go into executive session before adjourning. this
Correct,
meeting.
that's what I was
Right.
meaning, yes. I thought he was going to adjourn.
Oh, I thought he was going to cut executive
We're
session.
trying.
That's what I thought he was doing too. I gotta be honest with you, that's what I thought he was
let me
doing.
know when you guys are ready.
Hey, we're ready.
All right.
Sorry.
All right, so we don't have any other official business before us out here, but pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 121.22G3, conferences with an attorney for the public body concerning disputes involving the public body that are subject of pending or imminent court action. I would request at this time that we have a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Rodriguez and a second by Mr. Bailey. Ms. Frymark, please call the roll.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
All right, those all not accounted for or not allowed to be here, please retire.
Thought he was juicing.
That's what I thought he was doing. I thought Jim was like, the heck with it.
And if he wanted to do it, he could have. If he wanted to do it, he could have.